like to call to order this regular workshop and business meeting of the Council Bluffs Community Schools for August 28th, 2018. Mr. Wilson, please call the roll.
Dr. Ogres,
Present.
Mr. Minshaw,
Present.
Mr. McGlade,
Present.
Mr. Kazire,
Present.
Mr. LaFurla,
Present.
Mr. Grove,
Yes.
Mr. Arthur.
Present. If everyone here would please join me for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Now I need approval of our agenda. Is there a motion?
I move approval of our agenda as presented.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign, and the agenda is approved. Now I need approval of the minutes from the board meeting of July 24th and August 14th. Is there a motion?
I'll move approval of the minutes from the board meetings of July 24th, 2018, and August 14th, 2018, as presented.
Thank you, Chris. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, John. Any discussion on these? Corrections? For the public, the August 14th meeting was a workshop that the board did. They're open to the public. This year, we decided to kind of give feedback, I think, from those meetings and kind of what things we discussed. It's kind of a time when the board members, I think, get to learn as a board about kind of board governance and the different laws and the things that govern school districts. And then used to hopefully drive better, I think, leadership for the district as a whole and a better relationship with the superintendent and her team. There was a couple different things that came out of this meeting, kind of alignment of our district goals and visions, and almost always keeping our ideas and thoughts around student achievement, ensuring all of our graduates are future ready, ready for either college, career, trades, armed service, whichever. Maintaining the investments the district already has within the buildings and the resources and the programs we have, and then enhancing support for mental health for students. So we just wanted to share that's what our discussion was on. If anyone's ever curious, those are posted meetings, and you can come sit down and take copious notes of us trying to lead the district. So thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign, and the minutes are carried. Now we come to the public participation portion of the meeting. Anyone who would like to speak to the board on any issue on the ballot or on the docket today may come up and state your name, address, and you'd have 3 minutes to speak to the board. Would anyone like to do so? Looks like no one's jumping up, so we will go on to, looks like I'm skipping over superintendent's report today.
Yes, we're going straight to.
We're going to go right to student and staff recognition.
Yes.
Dr. Murillo.
Thank you so much, Mr. Arthur. At this time, I'd like to ask Mr. Ostrowski to join me at the podium. We're going to begin by recognizing our staff, and then we'll recognize our students. I'm pretty excited about the students we have today. So, and the staff members that we're celebrating the work they did this summer. So the floor is yours, Ms. Ostrowski.
Thank you and good evening.
Good evening.
It seems fitting tonight that when the board is preparing to hear a report about our summer exploration program, that we would honor a couple of staff members who helped make that a great experience for students, for the fellow staff members, and for families. So tonight I'd like to invite you to help Dr. Murillo recognize Vanessa Dyes, Elementary Site Supervisor at Roosevelt, as our licensed staff member of the summer. I'd like to read a little bit about Vanessa. This is what her nominators shared about her, and we can embarrass her for a moment. So Vanessa Dyes teaches at Hoover Elementary through the school year and was the site supervisor, as I said, at Roosevelt this summer. She managed a full building staff and ensured an amazing experience for the approximately 300 students who attended programming. Vanessa went above and beyond the call of duty. She has been on board from start to finish, from late nights of interviews in the spring to checkout procedures for a staff of 50 on the final day. During the beginning of programming, there are always challenges as parents, students, and staff work in an unfamiliar environment, but Vanessa quickly got everything on track. It did not go unnoticed that she always had a positive attitude and was willing to support teachers and students however possible. Vanessa's dedication to summer learning shined through in all of her work. It's no surprise that her colleagues voted her Staff Member of the Month for June and are hoping she will return as site supervisor next summer. As our honoree, Dr. Murillo presented you this trophy in partnership with our Council Bluffs Schools Foundation, and you will be receiving a gift card as well. Please stay tuned and we'll get that to you. Congratulations, Vanessa. Okay. Yes. All right. Our support staff member of the summer is Jessica Clark, our middle level site supervisor at the zoo. Jessica? All right, let us embarrass you for a moment, if you'll please. Our support staff member, Jessica Clark, was a 21st century site facilitator through the school year, and then was site supervisor, as we said, for the middle level program at the zoo. She coordinated approximately 300 students in the zoo program. Her organization and leadership skills were shining stars of the program this summer. Her preparation started back in the spring and included her own planning, meetings with the staff, and an open house for all parents. During programming, she worked with students, staff, and the zoo's team to ensure that we were providing a safe and engaging opportunity for everyone. Jess hosted a showcase at the zoo for students, community partners, and over 150 parents and guests. It was a great way to end the summer and the showcase, not only to showcase student work, but Jess's dedication to our district and to summer learning. Congratulations, Jessica, and you received this trophy from our foundation, and you will be getting a gift card. And Jessica, would you share with us who you brought with you tonight? Oh, good, half the room, her big fan club.
Thank you so much for sharing her with us. She did a wonderful job. I'm gonna take pictures for that.
Yep.
And Mr. Arthur, will you join us?
Take a brief photo in the back of our honorees with Dr. Murillo and Mr. Arthur. Okay, at this time, we would like to recognize our students who represented us very well at the state track and field meet back in the spring. We're pleased that 5 of our students accomplished at the level to earn our Student Star Award. We have a few of them here this evening, or their parents, to receive the Student Star on their behalf. As I call the name, would the student or parent accepting on behalf join me at the podium to accept the award from Dr. Murillo? First of all, we have graduate Haley Hartman, represented by her father, Scott, this evening. Haley received 8th place in the 400 hurdles and was an academic all-state for track. Congratulations, Scott. Haley is now at the University of Iowa studying college public health. Wow, we expect great things. All right, and also represented tonight by mom, Julie Starner, is she's accepting on behalf of Josephine, Josie Starner from Thomas Jefferson High School, who received 4th place in the discus and 7th place in the shot put. And thank you, Julie, for accepting. Josie is currently attending the University of South Dakota, majoring in communications and music performance, and she has already started training with the soccer team. The track team, and has made one of the choirs. Okay. One of the music performance groups. So she's continuing her dedication to extracurriculars at college. And definitely track, although you'll see here in a minute, she was also a soccer player. Okay, do we have Caitlin Jones, our representative here tonight? All right, Caitlin is here. Caitlin is being honored for 5th place in the 200-meter dash and 6th place in the 100-meter dash. Congratulations, Caitlin. And Jaron Sampson. Jaron here tonight? Jaron received 6th place in the 400-meter hurdles. And we are hopefully going to see our next student star here. She's getting her senior pictures taken, so you know how that goes. But for the 3rd year now, we're wanting to recognize and have you help us celebrate Darby Thomas. Yes. Darby is our Iowa State champion in the long jump, so congratulations to her. And to all the coaches and parents, and the students themselves for their accomplishments. And that was in state track. We'll move on to soccer. These student athletes in soccer represent our school district so well. Tonight we're honoring the players who earned the honor of making the all-state soccer team. I'd like to invite Sawyer Elef, first team all-state. Sawyer. Skylar Ritter, 2nd team all-state. And I will mention Darby was 2nd team all-state in soccer as well. We'll make sure she gets her awards. And and Julie Starner, would you come back up and receive Josie's 2nd team all-state star? Congratulations to Josie. Oh. Not Julie, but Mike. Father's here now. Each gets one. We'll see if Josie ever sees them. They may just display them themselves. So congratulations to our student athletes. We look forward to great things to come, and we look forward to all the sports this coming school year and seeing all the accomplishments our students have. Students, if you would join Dr. Murillo and Mr. Arthur, if he's willing, back for photos. We love photos. And again, we'll make sure the students who were not represented here tonight receive their stars.
Congratulations to all the student athletes and to Jessica and Vanessa, who are long gone. And now we move on to the student achievement portion, which sounds like what we were just doing. But
Right?
summer
was.
school report?
Summer school is the report we're going to do now as we move into our student achievement. At this time, Dr. Worthman's going to join me at the podium to introduce our summer school report, which I think that you'll find some really good pieces of work that was done this summer. We are always thankful for our partnership with the zoo, and we're thankful for the work that happens. I think what I am most intrigued by is how we partner with those that do the research to see if what we do matters. And so I'm looking forward to that report in the fall. So Dr. Worthman, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you. It's my pleasure tonight to work with some really talented individuals who made a summer program very successful again this year, and continue to make our summer program one of the models both in the state of Iowa and in the nation. So I'm joined here tonight by Dr. Sandy Day, who is the director of the 21st Century Learning Centers Grant, Carly Gates, who is our coordinator of summer learning, as well as Lori Durand, who's a coordinator for special education. They're going to provide some information tonight about what it was like during summer school and some of the data that we have to share with you around how things went. Like Dr. Murillo said, we have a research study that's currently being conducted by the Iowa Reading Research Center on the success of the reading program that we will have for you later on in the fall. But I would be remiss if I didn't thank the folks whose funding makes it possible for us to have this exceptional program for our community during the summer. This is a collaboration between the Council Bluffs Community School District, the 21st Century Learning Centers Grant, as well as the generous support of the Iowa West Foundation. Without their support, it would not be possible for us to have summer learning for Council Bluffs students. So with that, I will turn it over to the people who actually made it happen, Carly Gates and Sandy Day.
Good evening again. Thank you so much for having us. We are continuing to work during the summer months to help make sure that students grow, explore, and succeed. And we're excited to talk to you about the great things that were happening in our district during summer programming. But first, we are going to start off with an activity.
Good evening, everyone. If you could reach for the blue folder that's sitting right in front of you. Inside the folder, you're going to find three things. The first one is an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. It's going to have our Camp Summer Explore logo up at the far left-hand corner. The words "Start Here" at the far left-hand corner on the bottom. In the upper right-hand corner, you're going to see the words "You Made It." And in between the "You Made It" and "Start Here," you see solid lines and you see dotted lines. For the purposes of our simulation this evening, if you can think about this as your game board, so your 8.5 by 11 is your game board. You also should find inside your folder either an L or an M on a card. And then finally, there's a little teeny tiny graduation cap and diploma rolled up, and that is your game piece. So let's go ahead and get started.
Okay, so to start, everyone align your game piece with the bottom solid line. It says "Start Here" right below that line. Okay, so step one, if you are an M, go ahead and move up to the next dotted line. If you are an L, just stay where you are. Step two, if you are an M, move up to the next dotted line. If you're an L, move up to the next solid line. Next, if you are an M, move up to the next solid line. If you are an L, move down to the previous dotted line. Step four, if you are an M, move up to the next solid line. If you are an L, move up to the next dotted line. Next, M's, move up to the next dotted line. L, move down to the previous solid line. up to the next dotted line. L, move up to the next solid line. Step 7, M's move up to the next solid line, and L move down to the previous dotted line. Step 8, M move up to the next solid line, L move up to the next dotted line. Next, M move up to the next dotted line, L move up to the previous, move down, I'm sorry, to the previous solid line. Step 10, M, move up to the next dotted line, L, move up to the next solid line. Almost done here. Step 11, M, move up to the next solid line, L, move down to the previous dotted line. And lastly, step 12, if you are an M, move up to the next solid line. If you are an L, move up to the next dotted line.
How many of you made it? Yay! Congratulations. You are high school graduates of the Council Bluffs Community Schools. How many of you did not make it? Oh, this simulation was designed to oh, that's not quite what it meant, but I never thought of that. This simulation was designed to show you what happens from year 1 of school to year 12 of school. Let's take a little bit deeper look at what happens over the summer if we try to mitigate for some of these instances.
Two children, one from a middle-income family, the other from one of the millions of low-income families. As the two kids head off to kindergarten, look what happens. The middle-income child starts out with a 6-month. Low-income child is already falling behind because of a lack of access to early reading and preschool education. During their year in kindergarten, in the same school and classroom, the two children will learn at about the same rate. So we'll move forward 9 months. But look what happens in that first summer between kindergarten and first grade. Our middle-income child moves ahead about a month in reading because one kind or another continues over the summer. The low-income child falls back about 2 months. So when school begins again, when they go back for first grade, the gap between them has already widened. During first grade, again, they move ahead at about the same rate, another 9 months. That next summer, the activities and lifestyle of the middle-income family keep that child moving, but for low-income, fewer opportunities to reinforce good habits like reading, and that child falls farther behind. Then we come to second grade, and again, our two children learn at the same rate. But the summer after second grade sets our low-income child back again, and our middle-income child moves forward again, and the gap widens again. By just the third grade, the two children are already far apart. By the end of fifth grade, the gap between the children is 2.5 to 3 years. It will keep growing through middle school. So you see, without addressing what's happening during the summer, it is impossible to ever catch up. It's impossible to close the gap. No matter how high quality goes on from September to June, every year the gap widens.
Honestly,
Scary
we played that 2-minute and 11-second clip several times and it never made those hiccups. Takes away from the message, but you got the point, right? Well, what we'd like to do is spend a few minutes and talk about what actually happened for Council Bluffs, in this case, elementary students. This summer, our elementary program, we're trying to grow those skills. And as you might recall, we were planning on having the program hosted at Roosevelt, which it was, Roosevelt Elementary. You can see our average daily attendance there. I do want to remind the board that how students were eligible for the program, we took a look at their fall and their spring FAST reading scores, and if they had reading gaps, they were eligible to attend the program. All of those students took part in a rapid pre-assessment so that we could see what skill gaps they had before the program happened. And right now, as we speak literally, the post-assessment is going on. We'll be able to find out what happened to our students who participated in the program. We'll also be able to see what happened to the students who did not participate in the program. And again, I know it's already been mentioned here, but the Iowa Reading Research Center under Dr. Deborah Reed will report the findings back to us this fall, which is pretty exciting to be part of that study. We also wanted to point out one thing new we tried this year. Backing up, I don't know if you recall this, but the morning was all set for reading expanding those skills. The afternoon was really set for what we call electives and community explorations. One of the screens I love on that video was when it showed the middle income child in the summer going to libraries, going on trips out into the community. That's exactly what our kids did every single day in the afternoon. They got those experiences. But one thing we wanted to also try was to try to tap their leisure time. I know, we got them in the morning working, we got them in the afternoon working. We thought, well, maybe we can address this lack of leisure reading by students as they grow older in elementary school. A study that we looked at showed that by age 10, less than half of our students will pick up a book to leisure read. So we thought we'd try to address that. We made a partnership with Kids Read Now. It is literally a national company who works with school districts in the summer to address leisure reading deficit. And it's kind of cool because the parent is connected to a Kids Read Now coordinator online or through their phone, and they report back to the Kids Read Now coordinator online exactly how little Sandy Day loved her story and who her favorite character was. And as soon as mom tells the Kids Read Now coordinator how she's doing, then boom, she's read that book. She, in the U.S. mail, receives an incentive of some sort. Sometimes it's a squeegee ball because it's pretty stressful. And sometimes it's something else, such a keychain. We also receive those. But also they receive another book. Each one of our students that participated in this program were able to receive 9 books as part of the program, and they were able to keep those books. So their home library now is at least nine more strong. And as of July 27th, and I apologize, we don't have the final numbers yet because they're still wrapping it up because there were still 3 weeks left of summer when our program closed. But at that point, our students had already read over 520 books in their leisure time, which we think is pretty amazing.
Next, we have our middle level program that is hosted at the Henry Dorley Zoo. Each year, we are very grateful to the zoo for their partnership. We know how fortunate we are to have such an amazing learning environment that's so close to home. So this year, we ran 2 3-week sessions, and on average, 144 students attended that program each day, which is awesome. This year, though, we focused on integrating social and emotional learning into the program. We know the importance of social and emotional learning, especially with those kids at the middle level age. And so teachers use district resources to weave in daily lessons and activities that were geared toward social and emotional learning. So we will use data from the Panorama survey that is given during the regular school year in the spring and the fall to measure the effectiveness of that continued learning. And after they take that, we'll have data to present to you on that as well.
And if you ever go back through this PowerPoint, please do, or slideshow, please go back to the elementary slide at some point and look at that picture that is in the top banner, like this one is. Those are that was the 4th day of our program. That was Flag Day, July 14th. And we had the entire school, school staff and students out in front to get a picture to celebrate Flag Day. And as far as the high school program, it was divided into 2 parts, as we've kind of talked about in the past. June was all about credit recovery, and that's our program to succeed. It was again hosted at Thomas Jefferson High School. Students from both high school home attendance areas and Canesville were invited to recoup credits, and 146 credits were earned by students. Students earned at least 1, some more than 1. And I'm happy to tell you that some of those faces that you see right there in that slide are our 5 students who graduated with the Council Bluffs Community Diploma this summer. The other half of our program for high school happened in July, and it was a 2-part program. There was a morning component and an afternoon component, and this took place at both high schools. It was hosted specifically for incoming freshmen, and the morning program was called Leveraging Youth for the Freshman Team, or LIFT, and it was again hosted at each high school. Over 100 students participated in this program. The morning was all about what is it like to be in high school. Like literally, what is it like? What is the building like? How do I navigate? In fact, one of the activities was the site supervisors gave them fake schedules, and they had to find their way around the building. It was really great. It was so much fun that I think the students were asking to do it again and again and again because they were learning more and more and more about their school. A huge emphasis was all about what is the importance of credits. Are they really important? And no, yes, they are. We spent a lot of time, a lot of coaches and club sponsors came in to talk about out-of-school activities that kids can look forward to. Then we took a break for lunch, and then in the afternoon, we had what we called career and trade explorations. Again, these same students that came in the morning were there in the afternoon. They went online and researched a local business. They had the opportunity to make some questions up in advance. They hopped on a bus, took a tour of that business from a knowledgeable person at that organization. They learned about all of the occupations and trades that go on under one roof. Just think about Hy-Vee, that was one of our visits. CHI Mercy was another one of our visits. Students took 4 visits that week, and on the 5th day they presented typically a slideshow talking about what they learned, what they saw themselves doing going forward, and what they didn't see themselves doing going forward. And at the end of that week, those students earned their first elective credit, so they came into high school with 1 elective credit under their belt. We're pretty proud of that. And now I think I'll hand this over to Lori Durand, and she can talk about our extended school year program.
Hello. We had the extended year school program this year, and it was hosted at Rue and Thomas Jefferson. We collaborated with community members. We had some groups come, most of our groups come in, and this is for our identified special education students who have been identified as needing additional support. And so it's a 3-week program. Our special education teachers and paras work together along with our behavior consultants. We have, the focus is really working on those reading and math goals and working to improve and continue to maintain that progress on those goals. And we have our attendance. We had 95 elementary students and 59 secondary students that attended.
And at this time, if I could ask, we have some student and parent guests this evening that would like to come and share some information with you about what they experienced this summer. We have 4. We have Jocelyn Keller. She'll go first. She's our 3rd grade student at Longfellow. We have Kelly Keller, who probably looks a lot familiar to you all. You've seen her quite a bit. She is not only a parent of Jocelyn and others, but she's also a staff member and has been with us for many summers. We have Jill Johnson, a middle-level parent who's going to talk about the zoo program. And then finally, we have Gracie Lowe. She is a freshman at AL High School, one of our first students to participate in the LIFT and Career and Trade program. So if I could ask Jocelyn to come on up.
My name is Jocelyn.
Jocelyn, what did you like summer programming this summer?
Yeah.
So if I had to ask you what was your favorite part of summer programming, or maybe even 2 favorite parts, what's one?
Dice Dollar Store.
Oh, maybe I don't think that Mr. Grove can see you. Can you tell us what the Dice Dollar Store was all about? Too bad Mrs. Dice isn't here to hear how wonderful this was.
It was about where you got fake dollars if you were there for perfect attendance.
Okay. Did you have perfect attendance?
No.
Did you have pretty good attendance?
Yeah.
What did you buy?
A lot of stuff.
You don't want to tell us like one thing that you bought?
One of those like hair clips that click into your hair and like it's like a color thing.
Oh, excellent. That sounds like fun. Okay. Well, does anybody have a question or follow-up question for Jocelyn?
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you, Jocelyn, very much. Kelly, do you want this or do you want the? She's going to go for the sturdy microphone.
Hi, I'm Kelly Keller. I've been doing summer school program for 6-7 years. thoroughly enjoy it. I'm also a parent and William's done summer school for like 4 years. I can see him growing in reading and math. JoJo's done it for 3 years, as you can tell. She's very outgoing, Brandon, as you can't tell right now. Girl never hushes, but her reading's doing really good and stuff too. If it wasn't for summer school, they'd be swimming all day on their tablets inside. With summer school, she's there all day. They come home, it wears them out. They go to sleep, take a nap, thank you. So, I mean, they're learning, and I appreciate it very much. I mean, otherwise, they'd be at home doing what they would normally do and swimming. As a employee, I get to meet people I normally would not work with. I keep my medical skills up. I do things I don't normally do in my own school on a maybe yearly basis, or which is good because my skills are different. I may not see the same student throughout the years, but my skills might be different in the summer, where I might get a diabetic or do a straight calf or something different. So my skills are going to be constantly changing, but they're current. So like I said, I get to meet different staffs, and they're wonderful. Parents are great. So I love it. I continue loving it. I would do it again if hopefully the opportunity is there.
Oh, congratulations, yeah, thank you.
Jill, do you want the lapel mic, or you? Oh, she's going for the big one, okay.
Hi, my name is Jill Johnson, and my son Beckett attended the summer exploration camp at Henry Doorly Zoo earlier this summer. He absolutely loved it. He got himself up, ate, and showered before anyone in the house was awake. Beckett was literally ready to go a half hour before it was time for summer school. I was amazed. I was really, really impressed with his desire to go every day. I really liked the way he did different things every day, whether he was spending time with the rhinos, elephants, or a field trip to the hot shops. He came home every night with stories and had me Google what kind of animal they were working on, because I didn't realize what that was. I know I'm probably preaching to the choir, but the added structure of the 3-week camp in the summer really helped my son. He can easily get off track. This kept him moving forward, and I know it helped him from losing things over the summer. Especially what I noticed was the science and the math, the data they would collect from the animals and then analyze it. That really took it over the edge for him. Overall, I think the camp at the zoo is an incredible experience for our kids in Council Bluffs. To be able to go behind the scenes at one of the premier zoos in the world is something so unique. When I tell friends of mine outside of the district about the camp, they are so jealous. Sometimes we take for granted how lucky we are to have the Henry Doorly Zoo as an education-based asset to our community, not just an attraction. I would hope you would take my comments into consideration regarding the future of the program.
Very good,
Thank
thank you.
Okay, well, thank you so much to our guests for coming to talk about the successes of summer programming. Oh, yes, we do. We have one more guest, and then we will thank her.
Because we're switching out of Chrome, so I need to let the
Gracie Lowe.
Good for her.
Nice.
Might be better. I'm a little short. No, I think I got this. Okay. Greetings. My name is Gracie Lowe. Previously this summer, I participated in a program called LIFT. It's an opportunity for freshmen to kind of get the drift of the school. What was the point? gives students the first look on the school. It helps create an idea of what you would like to do in the future, because what we did is we would go and we would visit different careers and have like a tour of it. So like you would kind of get the idea of how many years of school you would need, what you would need to do to fit the criteria of it. The interaction between everyone kind of gives you an idea of the school, because the maturity level between you and your peers have gone up over the summer. Here's some fancy pictures. In these pictures, we were tie-dyeing shirts our school colors, because go Lynx. The second picture is how they turned out. Aren't they beautiful? Was it worth it? Absolutely. In my experience, I had a blast. I was so engaged that I wanted to come back. I even wrote Dr. Day a note so she could stay, because she was having so much fun. But unfortunately, that didn't work. But it gave the directors of the program a new outlook on how I'm inviting the class of 2022. In these pictures, we were at the Squirrel Cage Jail. That's one of the places we visited over the 3 weeks. As you can see, I'm the model. What did we do? Every day, we either went to a business or a speaker came to us and we learned what they did as a career. We had previous students from Abraham Lincoln come talk to us about their experience as freshmen. We also had something fun planned, like Capture the Flag, which you'll see next. Okay, yes, beautiful pictures. These are some pictures from when we played Capture the Flag. It was not easy because we had bullets, like, they weren't real, they were like Nerf gun bullets, and you could throw them at people, and if it hit them, they were out. So they would have to go to their jail, and someone would have to run all the way across the room to go get them, and it was outrageous. But as you can see, I was the winner. Okay, how it helped me personally. The most important thing that I got from it was you have to study. It was talked about a lot by previous speakers from Abraham Lincoln, and Jordan, he was one of the directors. I have already started taking notes. I've only been in school for 4 days. It's also a good opportunity to get an elective credit, so, yeah. Okay, this is kind of a layout of an everyday type of thing. In this picture I was reading to the class, it kind of became an everyday thing. I found a book that had my name on it, so I was like, holy, let's read this book. So then it just started becoming an everyday thing. At 9:30, it was story time. Then me and another student, we would do games to find out more about our peers, to try and interact with them. After that, we would have a lesson from one of our directors to tips to succeed. We would also have a scavenger hunt, as said by Dr. Day. We would have a scavenger hunt given to us to go find different classes around the building, so we would get the outlook of the building. I will continue to encourage incoming 9th graders, because this program was really good, to take this opportunity for granted. I love this program, and I hope I can help out next year. What was it like being a mentor? I was a mentor for 2 weeks since I came back, because I did the first week, and then after that I came back. So I was a mentor for 2 weeks. My experience was amazing. I love helping, so this opportunity was just great for me. I grew closer to my directors and my peers. It helped me see from a teacher's eye, because, like, you know, 8th grade, middle school, you weren't mature, you were doing silly things, so kind of helped me mature. Being a mentor for 2 weeks was so much fun. I got to work one-on-one with people. I had the advantage of being able to direct some of the things we had planned. It was so much fun, and I hope I can do it next year. If you have any questions or comments, my contact information is right there. If you have any questions or comments for Dr. Day, there's hers. Thank you.
Very nice, very nice. So, Grace, is this something that every student should go through, you think?
Yes. I've actually talked to some 8th graders about it while I was in the program. I told them, I said, you should really get into this. This really helps. gives you the layout. Like, when we were in orientation, people were like, where's this class? Where's this class? A wing, B wing, C wing, C wing's this way, B wing's this way, A wing, 200, 100, 0, 0. So, like, I just had, like, everything planned out. So, like, it was a good opportunity.
Very nice, very nice. And did you have this decision on which career you liked?
I liked,
Yeah, yeah.
I liked the one where we went and we visited this place where there were like dogs. There were dogs, and there was also this farm one I really liked. There was baby goats, and there was, I think that, yeah, and the herd of lambs and sheep and everything else were over here. The lady would whistle for them, and they would just start running towards her, like animals, like they were just listening. They was like, it was like a trained dog just running through you. Like, it was great. So yeah, we would go to field trips almost every day. Sometimes people would come to us. Like, there was one, Children's Hospital. Yes, Children's Hospital. He was a
Flight nurse.
yes, he came and talked to us, and I got a picture with him, so.
It was made it worth it.
Very
What does
nice,
Gracie have with her today?
very nice. Ooh, that's a good question. Yeah, who does Grace have with her today?
I have my mom.
Oh.
Stand up.
Gracie, I have a question for you.
Ma'am.
How do you feel it helped you get to know your peers before school started?
Okay, so when I was in school.
Talk into the microphone here so people at home can hear
yes, okay, yes, microphone. So when I was in 8th grade, I wasn't very social. I
Right.
didn't like talking to people. I was like, get away from me.
you. That's a shocker, because you are a talker. You're very
Well,
social.
my directors kind of grew me into that.
Good.
So like they helped us mature into like, hey, people aren't scary. They don't bite. So
Mhm.
like, yeah.
So you
Very
felt like
nice.
it was good for relationships
Yes.
and establishing peers before school
And
started.
are there kids you met you didn't know?
Yeah, yes. Yeah.
Good.
Very nice.
Because there's different teams at Kern. So like you wouldn't have classes with those people. So when we did the program, there was so many people I didn't know.
Nice. Very nice. Best presentation today?
Okay, so now, I can't believe I almost forgot you. We just want to say thank you again to our guests, just to come and talk about the successes of summer programming. As you experienced in the activity and watched in the video that did not play correctly, and heard from all of us, we know that summer matters, and we really feel confident in the work that we're doing to help our students achieve more. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you all. Very nice. Okay, now we are into the informational presentations. And we have superintendent goals.
Are you
Out
ready?
there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I again want to thank those that were a part of summer school. And you know it's pretty awesome when you go somewhere to have lunch and you have a father of a kid walk up and say, my child loves summer school. And they were also at the zoo. And you sit there and go, we're knocking it out of the park.
Yeah.
So again, of course, when I'm at the end of the year celebration, I'm asking Carly, have you booked it? We book it before we leave for next year, because we definitely have a great time. And I think that the LIFT program is only gonna grow. It was a beginning stage this year, but it will continue to grow, and we'll do a really good job of recruiting kids to come out and just enjoy themselves together.
What would that take to have all kids go through that?
It would take more
Program.
staff. It would take more money.
Green, yeah.
But,
I think about like camaraderie in the schools, you know, and just kind of saving us some issues on that getting aware of where you're at for the first couple of weeks and
just letting kids come and find their classrooms.
Getting
and-
kids to activities, getting kids involved in activities.
It's a great program. So we'll dig into that before we get into Christmas to see what we can do. That'll be a great deal. So thank you, Dr. Day, thank you, and Carly, thank you for all you did. Thank you. So at this time, we're going to move into the informational presentation. And I know that when we did the board workshop, we talked about superintendent goals. And I wanted to put a little teeth to this, and I'm probably going to move the cheese just a little bit on you all, and from the style of how Dr. Bruckner used to present our goals and how I'm going to kind of the format, because it is a team that drives the goals. And before we begin those, I want to real quick, because tonight you're voting on a contract for Dr. McNitt, and I'd like Dr. Wendy McNitt to stand for me, please, so I can introduce her and welcome her to Council Bluffs Community School District. Thank you, Dr. McNitt. And then also ask Emily Warren if you would stand. Emily, I want you guys to have a face. Emily is our new Director of Compliance, not Ms. Ostrowski, but I'm sorry, Diane. But Emily and Dr. McNitt will really bring strength and really help us move our HR department to the next level. So thank you for
Very good.
joining our team.
Thank you.
Now, I'm not sure if when we get to that contract, if you have any questions, but Dr. McNitt is only going to be with us 3 days a week.
Okay.
And, but yet she's going to take a laptop home and assist me from home on those other two. So at this time, as we move into the superintendent goals, I'm not sure who's driving for me. I don't have a clicker.
There's no way to drive.
No way to drive. I don't have the gas. I don't have any keys, no. Remember?
I'll drive.
Thank you. So as we were looking at the superintendent's goals, we began to visit as a cabinet and talk through those. So tonight, the cabinet members that are going to partner with me on the 4 goals that we are going to present to you this evening and then get feedback from you and ask you to approve tonight, I'm going to have the cabinet members join me as we talk through them. Because I want to make sure that the measurements that we're looking at are measurements that the cabinet, the board feels comfortable with the work that the cabinet's going to do this year. So Dr. Worthman, if you would join me, and Ms. Ostrowski, if you would switch that. So the 4 goals that we're going to look at this evening are improve student achievement, which we know that is our #1 priority. Guarantee all of our graduates are future ready. Develop a district master facility plan, and to expand mental health supports. Those are the 4 areas that as a district we will focus on this year. Again, during our work sessions, going deeper and also continuing to have conversation around the strategic planning process too. Because we know that our strategic plan comes to an end at the end of this current school year. So as we move on into the first goal, improving student achievement, you're going to quickly notice that we do not have the state assessment as one of our measurements. We do believe, as Dr. Borthman's going to talk you through these measurements and why we've come to an agreement as a cabinet, and then we'll present those after the board approves with feedback from our principals, why we believe that if we meet these measures, we will also move the needle on our state assessment, that you'll see a correlation. And so the other concern we have is we don't know exactly what our state assessment is going to look like yet. And so to put in a measurement in that we've not been given any insight to, whether it'll be online, not online, and how it will be structured, we just know that right now, a real deep focus is going to be around the MAP assessment. So Dr. Borthman, if you'll walk through the measures for me. And then the other thing I'd like to ask permission from the board is after we finish each one of the goals, if we could just pause and take questions on that goal first and then move to the next one, so that we're not at the end trying to remember. That would really help the team and I.
So improving student achievement is the first goal for a reason. It's the primary focus of the work that we do each day for children and the parents in our community. We wanted to put 3 very clear measurable targets so that you will be able to see progress as we move throughout the school year. And all 3 of them are related to student performance and growth on the MAP test. If you recall, last month, we brought you a report about what MAP looked like, what some of the reports and data might look like. And so this is a direct relation to that report and what you will see in the future when we start looking at our individual MAP scores in the fall, winter, and spring. The first target is having 100% of our students make some type of growth during the school year. And so we have talked for years about being able to determine making sure that students are growing. And that's incredibly difficult to do when you look at a norm referenced assessment from the state. What we're suggesting tonight is that we're committed to making sure that our students grow, all of our students. That includes our special education students, students who are coming to us speaking a language other than English, as well as our students in talented and gifted programs and students that are receiving core instruction. The second target is 50% of our students will achieve their individual growth targets. And if you remember from the presentation I did last month, the MAP test will give us a specific goal for every individual student based on their present level of performance. And what we wanted to do is provide an opportunity to give you some updates both on students who are growing, but also the amount of students who are actually meeting that lofty self-improvement goal. We met with representatives from NWEA, the vendor that produced this assessment, to determine what is a good starting point, because we're starting from scratch. And they suggested that if we could get to 50% of our students hitting that target, we would be hitting it out of the park because of the rigor of the assessment and the amount of growth that a student has to make to maintain and increase year after year after year. The third target is that 80% of our students will score in those three bands that I mentioned at our last meeting: average, high average, or high. And you are probably sick of me saying, if we can get 80% of our students scoring, that we know that core instruction is working. This is another indicator of that. We are all in on core instruction, and we think that as we continue to grow the quality of instruction that students receive in the classroom, their access to high quality universal tier, that we will continue to see improvement over time and students achieving at least 80% of our kids in those top three categories. So those are targets that we want to reach toward for our students for the next school year for MAP, and we look forward to bringing you updates in the fall, winter, and spring so that you can see how we're making progress over time rather than waiting for May after students have gone and trying to make adjustments after the fact. So we welcome any questions or discussion that you might have about these three individual measurable targets.
Bless you. Any questions on the board? Go for it.
Yeah. So the question that I really have, so like, when will we be able to actually see the growth they're having? I think you said in the last one that we can't really compare spring to fall.
Correct.
So that would it be
Winter.
fall to winter then? That we would actually.
So
Okay.
the bottom target we'll be able to report on in the fall. The other two targets we will be able to report on in the winter, and then again in the spring.
I guess I'm curious, what did NWEA say is an average growth percentage for that 50% of students? Did they throw out a number, or is this
They use percentile ranks.
Percentile
So
ranks.
what they're able to tell us is based on students who score at levels where our students score, they can show us on a continuum of 1 to 100 where our kids would be based on how much growth they made.
Okay.
So one of the things that's shifting a little bit is we've talked for many years about this term proficiency. And you notice that's intentionally not up here, because what we're really trying to do is focus in on what are the individual needs of students and how can we show that individual students are growing or not growing. The bottom measure is our best, what I would call a best aggregate measure that looks at, as a district, how are we making progress? Are we hitting that threshold of where we've set at 80%? What NWA also will do for us is as we get into that winter and spring testing period, they will also give us a set of norms that show us how students perform in schools that look just like our schools. So there's a national and norm group, which is what we talked about for the last year. But then there's a more specific norm group that would be students who are in districts with higher levels of poverty and in urban areas versus students who are in suburban areas or in high SES areas. So we'll be able to get a little bit more diagnostic about, for comparative purposes, to see how students achieve versus students who would be our peers across the nation.
So when we talked about the 100%, at first when I kind of threw that out, we had a lot of eyebrows that raised in the cabinet, like 100%, are you sure? But remember, demonstrating growth may mean that they took the test in the fall and they had a 190 RIT score, and their goal is to get to 201. But they may move the needle to only 195. We're looking for students that don't hit their target, but they do demonstrate growth. The other great piece of the MAP assessment, as you noticed on the summer school, when you started seeing that gap widening, it will also identify what students don't know and must know to be able to continue to move for our teachers. And it will group the students for our teachers, so they can even see the groupings as they've set up. So the 100%, we believe every child in this district can make growth. We believe that. And with this being our first year, I would tell you, in my prior district, they told me first year if I could get to 35%. So we're setting a bar kind of high with 50%, but Dr. Borthman believed it, so I'm going to support it. Where in my prior district, they told me first year, because our teachers are learning it in implementation year, and our students are just learning to take the assessments, that 30 to 35% was kind of a norm, an average that they always told school districts that were in their implementation year, that you could probably get 30 to 35%. So we're really going to work and help students understand the targets and move forward. And then I love that we want 80% of our students in those higher levels, those higher bands. And I think that will translate into us really beginning to move the needle on proficiency in the state assessment.
What percentage are we at right now for our goal of 80% of students?
Less than 50.
Okay. If we don't know what's on the state assessment, and we say that this is going to help us move the needle, we're confident in that because we're continuing to administer these tests and monitor growth?
Yeah, so two
Okay.
things are happening. One is the MAP assessment is actually aligned to state standards.
Yep.
Wow.
Here we go.
I know. Secondly, we are told that the new state assessment will also be aligned to state standards.
Okay.
So as soon as that first administration of the state assessment comes out, NWEA will do an alignment study to the Iowa State assessment. And then, like I showed you last time, we will have predictors within the MAP test that will show us where students are likely to perform on the Iowa assessment. As long as the new state assessment is aligned to state standards, we should be running on parallel tracks, one an end of the year test and one 3 dipsticks over the course of the year.
What are we defining as growth? You know, we say 50% of our students are going to hit their target.
Yep.
Are we just saying growth overall, or do we have a specific?
So I took the word RIT out on purpose because it's kind of confusing. But the way that NWA works is it's on a scaled score. So it's a continuous scale all the way from kindergarten all the way to 12th grade. And based on where the student performs, they set a target that basically determines how many RIT points they have to grow in order to maintain progress.
And what's our end goal by state assessment administration for that?
By the end of the school year.
By the end of the school year.
So it's based
Okay.
on one academic year.
Okay.
Yep, good question.
So does that over time, over time we become really good at this, using this tool, do you have adjustments inside where you set your goals, set your targets, and And do your numbers change within that? I mean, how does it, you say, you kind of move in like a cohort almost of you and other schools like you and like peers, I guess.
You could, but each one of you will have, if you were all students in my classroom, you would all test at probably a different level. Even though you may have similar attributes or you may perform at a similar level, the RIT score focuses in on a single point of performance for you. And your goal, you may be testing at, your RIT score may be 190, and Dr. Murillo's may be 180, but your growth hers may be 3 and yours may be 8. Based on how much growth they see students who score like you should be making in a single school year.
Right, so every student's challenged.
Every student is challenged according to where they score.
And we feel that the educators in the classroom have the resources available to
Well,
support them
So we spent.
to do this.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time this summer at Summer Academy, starting with some training that was completed by our own teacher leaders. We've got some early implementers who are out in front, who are probably learning faster than we are. And it will take us some time to, I think, fully utilize the power of the resource. But what Dr. Shudak and Joe LeDuc, our digital learning specialists, are doing is they're going out to buildings, they're meeting with individual groups and grade levels of teachers, they're meeting with individual buildings who need more time to really dig in. And I think after our first fall administration, there will be a lot of questions.
Sure.
People will have, I think they'll have a lot of unanswered questions.
So it would be fair to say that this fall is going to be a learning process for all of us to
Yeah,
integrate the
absolutely.
data and, okay.
The spring, I think what the spring did is it gave us kind of an idea of what was possible. It got people very excited, I can tell you that. I think people, when they were able to come back this summer, see the reports and actually see the scores of their kids, there was some anxiety that naturally comes of seeing this is actually how my students scored, and now it says I need to move them this far in this amount of time, and that is,
Sure.
I mean, that's a lot of pressure
Right.
that people, I think, feel, and ownership of that data. And I think our goal is to turn that into momentum.
What
High
can-
standards for students.
What can we do as a board to help support that and decrease that anxiety so that it's not
I think that
an
is.
unexpected, unrealistic expectation?
Right. I think that's what we talked about. Remember when I talked about urgency versus fear?
Mm-hmm.
And really making sure we stay in a balance with that. And I think us updating you and you guys having kind of that elevator speech and that understanding so that when teachers talk about it with you or parents, that you are able to kind of have that conversation with them. I think that'll really help because we planned one work session with the board to really help you guys see what this looks like. Our teachers do a great job and are going to take this. The kind of concern I had is they're going to want to do this so well that they could, stress over it, and it'll be our principals' jobs to really help them during the PLC meetings and the time that they have their collab time together during those early release days to really spend some time talking through it.
I would assume, though, this actually gives a teacher a tool to try to drive that themselves in the classroom where they really haven't had the chance to check
Yes.
on where kids are. You just kind of got to the end of the year and here they were, and you're like,
I think they had other resources that
Yeah,
we were using
absolutely.
to map that, but I think the final card was the state assessment and.
right.
I guess what I see more with this instrument is that it's a better diagnostic tool. It allows the instructor in the classroom to be able to find out what's really working and not working for each individual student, so that they can implement that differentiated learning that's going,
But it
that
also
can be
gives
going on
them
in the classroom.
multiple opportunities to try different approaches and angles to
Yeah.
teach
differentiate.
whatever the strategy is so they can understand it.
And then I guess I have, so will we still at all be using like the FAST assessment?
Yes.
Okay.
Remember,
just-
the FAST is a screener, which tries to cast a net to say, who needs additional support and help. And that is a state mandate that we use a official screener for literacy.
You're good.
I wonder if one way to help mitigate some of that fear is to your point, that it's really an opportunity, this gives teachers an opportunity to focus on the individual student. As a board member, that's what I care about the most. I appreciate having goals and things like that, but I care about that individual kid being challenged and getting the teaching and learning opportunities that child deserves. And I think that this tool gives teachers the resources to do that.
And you'll notice there are two that are based on growth.
Yeah.
And then along the way, are we, the communication with parents and community to explain
Yeah, the
this thing?
first letter's already gone out from principals to families that introduced them to the MAP test, that showed them what they could expect to see in the fall. And then once we get the first round of scores back, then they'll get another communication that shows them how to log into their accounts, how to see individual scores, how to access online resources that are aligned to their student scores, so that they can stay informed and help their student at home if they have the ability to go online and see the lessons that are complementary to where they're at a present level.
What grade do we start this in again?
Garden.
Oh, it is
That's
kindergarten.
early.
Welcome, John, right?
The goals, is that an aggregate from fall to spring? So, okay, so the 50% growth, if a student meets that from fall to winter,
It's going to adjust another goal for them.
okay.
Good.
It is an unknown for our district. We believe in it, and I know I used it to move a needle in a prior district. So I'm really excited that the teachers selected this. I can remember when the trainer came and Melissa came over to my office and she goes, "You didn't tell us you used the MAP assessment." I said, "I didn't tell intentionally. I wanted you guys to choose what you felt was best." So pretty excited. So goal 2 is our guaranteeing that all graduates are future ready. And again, that goes back to the vision that we casted, that every student will graduate from high school with a high school diploma and another piece of paper. And so we have 3 measures here that I'd like Dr. Forthman to walk us through. And again, we'll pause and take questions on them.
So these 3 measures are grounded in the academic plan that you saw last school year, the 3-year plan. And they are snapshots in time based on us hitting a 3-year target. So that's why it's, you'll see that the first one is shooting for 10 students who are graduating this year with a associate's degree or secondary, post-secondary certificate. And that is based on our goal of getting 50 by year 2020. So that's a progress monitoring for that goal. Second one is about National Career Readiness Certificate, and that is our goal to increase by 20% the number of students that we had earning a National Career Readiness Certificate over the next 3 years. So in order for us to hit that target in 2020, we've got to get to 228 by the end of this school year. And then the last one is the percentage of students who are earning at least 1 college credit before graduating from high school. And that also is, represents a 20% increase over the 3 years. So if 66% hit that for this year, we'll be on target for our 3-year goal. We could have chosen any measures for Future Ready. There are lots of different definitions of Future Ready, but we felt that these 3 were the ones that align most closely with the superintendent's vision to ensure that every student graduates with a high school diploma and a second piece of paper.
Any questions?
What percentage of seniors do we have now that earn college credit prior to
You were gonna ask
graduation?
me that
I'm
question.
sorry.
No, that's a great question.
Just trying to see what
So
our
in,
goal is.
yeah, in 2016-17, it was 52%. Our goal for 2017-18 was 59. We exceeded that. We hit 63 for last school year. 18-19 is 66%, and our ultimate goal is 72% by 2020.
Okay, and how many students with the NCRC?
NCRC, our goal was to hit 247 by 2020. We started with 190 in 2016-17. We were just shy of our goal by 9 kids this year. We had 199. Our goal is 208, and next year our goal is 228.
What do you think the barrier is to that? Because
think
it just
this
seems
year-
so achievable, I
Third
just
of
don't
the-
understand. why more people
NCRC,
don't
we
do it.
should have hit out of the park this
Right.
year.
Third of the kids.
We had a spell of bad luck. We had all of the students in the auditorium to take the test at AL and TJ, and the ACT server went down in Iowa City, and not all of the students were enticed enough by the pizza that I bought them to come back the last week of their senior year.
I remember
I
that.
thought pizza would do it.
That's right.
There
I
are some
forgot.
that did come back, but it was not enough. That is no excuse for us being able to, I met with Paul Hans, our Career and Technical Education Coordinator, and Deb Goodman, our CT Curriculum Consultant. And we put a plan in place this year to not wait until the end of the year. All of our students will be testing in the class that they are in a CTE course after they finish the class. So we're gonna do it at 3 points during the school year, so we don't
Good.
have to wait until the end.
Okay.
Interesting.
You're right, that goal, we should blow the top
Yeah,
off of that goal.
why don't more kids get it?
We're also meeting with the chamber
Oh, okay.
to have some conversations about how we can encourage more businesses, human resources directors in our metro area to recognize the importance of the NCRC. That started in workforce development in Council Bluffs as a major initiative of our community. We took it on as something that we believe in. And so we want to kind of engage some of those external stakeholders in the value add that comes to hiring a student who comes with this extra piece of paper, this career credential.
Thank you.
So will students then be able to take the NCRC multiple times?
They can take the
they
NCRC
wanted
multiple
to.
times, and several do.
Mm-hmm.
If they score bronze the first time, they may try in another class later on in the year to see if they can get gold or platinum or.
Interesting. Any other questions from the board?
This isn't part of the goals, but it just made me think about the, is it Naviance? Is that the
It's our
tool?
career information system.
Just keep thinking about all the employers that talk more about the soft skills, and I thought,
Yeah.
is that an assessment? What is, a survey? What is that?
So what Naviance does is, it's basically it's a state requirement that came about 2 years ago that requires all school districts to provide students with career education, which in a nutshell is helping students understand maybe areas that they are interested in, what their skills are in terms of both soft skills and hard skills, where they might be able to put those two things in alignment. What am I good at? What do I really like? Are their careers? And then it helps them plan out what their high school plan, what their post-secondary plan, and what their ultimate career plans are. It also encourages them it provides resources for applying to colleges, applying for scholarships, filling out the FAFSA. So it is kind of that central clearinghouse for a student to really learn about themselves and to get that college-going knowledge, that career-building knowledge, so that they're prepared when they're a senior to be able to make that next step.
So I was thinking about the strategic plan from last 5 years ago. And do we feel that this gets us to what we were wanting to do back then with Plan
5.1,
5?
5.2,
Yeah.
5.3, done.
Okay, okay,
We did it.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, good.
Great.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank
great. We'll move on to our third goal, and I'll ask Mr. Wilson to join me. This goal talks about our district master facility plan. And if you've kind of seen a pattern going on here, the cabinet member that's going to work really closely with me on these goals to help drive the goals and be a part of that. One thing, as we talked about in our board workshop, was really looking at how do we maintain the work that's already been done in the 11 elementary schools and our 2 high schools as we focus on renovating the middle school. So Mr. Wilson's going to talk about what it would look like as a district here to develop a comprehensive master facility plan, and then we'll take questions at the end.
Thank you.
So upgrades to our existing facilities are just the way things are as children move through the buildings year after year. We need to upgrade areas of the building such as classroom technology, HVAC systems, roof systems, maybe it's routine maintenance such as painting, new walls or whatever as things change. We realize that this is going to take some effort and some planning, and so what the goal here is by April, we would come back to the board with a plan. We are contemplating sending an RFP sometime in October to a facilities review consultant to come into our buildings and to help us, I should say, walking through the buildings with Stacy Pettit, myself, and others, to say what are some of the things coming down the road 3, 5, 10 years from now that we may have to actually address. A firm will be selected and a recommendation sent to the board for approval, hopefully before 12/31. At that point, we'll begin our work. And the work will be comprised of having a committee of teachers, parents, community members, administrators, board members, and others to come in and review those recommendations and decide what are our priorities and how do we fund this going forward? Where do we put the money? A budget will be prepared for the next several years, and updates will be provided to the board as we go along through this process until April, when we come back and say, here's our recommendation to the board, and you would all vote on that. The second bullet point is the implementation phase 1 of the middle school project, as we've talked about many, many times. So the question is that what happens on September 11th if, in fact, the bond does not pass? Well, we do have some limited funds that we could bond against on the revenue bonds to do some limited work in the 2 middle schools. It will not be nearly as extensive as we could do if the bond does pass, but there are some things we could get done. Another possibility is another vote could occur in April of 2019 in order to ask the public again to approve the bond. So we have some options at that point, but I'm optimistic that September 11th will be a good day for us and that hopefully we can move forward with the middle school renovations as we've outlined. Do you have any questions?
Questions on the board? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson.
Thank you.
And our last goal is expanding our mental health supports. Mr. Hamilton will be the lead person for me and working with me on this goal. And I'll ask him to walk through the 3 measures and as we move forward.
So this was also a goal last year, and it'd be my hope that this is a goal every year because, quite honestly, mental health is something that we will never be done with. We're not going to fix it. We need to keep working and keep expanding our skills to be able to help kids be successful. So the 3 areas that we're going to focus on expanding mental health supports are 76% of middle school and high school students will report positive self-perception of social emotional health as measured by the Panorama Survey. You may remember in May when Dr. Vorthman came and gave you all the information on the Panorama Survey that the students took. And when he was talking to you in May, he discussed how Student Family Services was going to be taking this over. So this year, Dr. Vorthman and I are working together and our teams are working together so I can learn more about the CASEL and the social emotional side of things moving forward. So that was a goal that we had set before. The second part is to increase by 20% the student and family engagement in school-based therapy. As you all know, we have created a tremendous partnerships with a number of different community agencies that provide school-based therapy in our schools. We know last year we referred 402 students to school-based therapy. 193 of those students actually engaged. And when I say students, there's a family piece that goes with school-based therapy. Families are required to meet with a therapist outside of school. So that's 48% of our kids engaged in that therapy. Our goal by 2021 for Student Family Services is to have 100% of the people we refer are engaged. So this first year, it's a 20% increase, and what we're going to do that is we have to do a few different things. Number one is we have to have relationships with families. Families have to believe that the school is doing what's right for their child. They have to have trust in the school and school personnel. The second piece is we need to make sure, this last year we really worked on the process of making a referral. So we need to make sure that we're following our process. That would involve having interventions in place. We shouldn't just refer students right away for mental health. They should have other interventions in place. So we need to make sure that we're having appropriate interventions. The last piece of that is appropriate referrals. We need to, so we have the interventions in place, appropriate referrals to the appropriate people. We worked this last year and we moved some people around. You may remember the clinical supervisor of student and family services. She really is a mental health professional. She's worked with our agencies. She's working with our schools. So we can make sure when a school makes a referral for mental health, we can really hone in on what the skills, the lacking skills are, so we can put them with the right therapist. So that's how we're going to increase by 20% this next school year. The last part is increase opportunities for staff to learn about mental health supports for students and families. And what I mean by this is there's 3 areas that we focused on. One is the social emotional side, which we've talked about, Panorama. We keep doing more professional development with our staff as we've done that the last year, and we continue to grow. The second piece is trauma-informed schools. So we have a few schools who have already cutting edge. They're out there doing trauma-informed, trauma-sensitive schools. So they're working on that. We need to figure out, because quite honestly, there's a number of different agencies out there who all say we'll help you with trauma-informed schools or trauma-sensitive schools. We need to look at what the schools are doing. They're kind of piloting this for us. We need to look at what they're doing to see if it makes a difference. Because if we're going to take something and we're going to make it a district initiative, which at this point it's kind of grassroots, right? If we're going to make it a district initiative, we need to make sure that it's something that we know will make a difference. The last piece that has really been grassroots that I'm really excited about is the mindfulness. And I have to thank Dave Fringer, is a certified search inside yourself instructor through Google. So he's able to teach that 2-day class. So we said last year we're going to work on mindfulness. And let me tell you, you cannot go to teachers and say you need to be mindful. You can't go to teachers and expect that they can teach mindfulness. It's really a practice. So we started out, and Dave and I sat down and said, well, what if this doesn't work? What if we don't have staff that want to voluntarily come and be part of this? And our answer was, if staff doesn't come, we'll move on. It's okay. So we started when your first class was April. So we started in April doing mindfulness. AEA also had a 1-day. We've had 152 staff members go through a 2-day training with Dave, and more who have gone to the AA for mindfulness. That doesn't mean that they're in their classroom doing mindfulness activities with kids yet. There are several who are, even if it's just 1-minute mindfulness when kids come in, whatever it is. But we believe, we're going to have to look at the data, that teachers who are practicing being mindful are going to be able to connect with kids better, be able to really read the room better, and we should see results. We should see, if we're looking at less referrals, whatever it is we're looking at, we should be able to see that there's a difference. So we're taking this next year to really look at those 3 areas for staff to learn, to really decide what direction we're going to go moving forward. I know I went really quick, so I would invite any questions that you have.
I've already heard something from someone, I can't remember who it was, about the mindfulness class, so sounds like it's well received. I'm sorry that I don't know this, but what does it mean to be a trauma-informed school?
So we know that we have kids, probably the most talked about form is, they call it ACEs, Adverse Childhood Experiences. So we know that we have kids who have gone through these adverse childhood experiences. We can take a survey, we can have them take a survey, we know it. So the more adverse childhood experiences you have, the more likely you are to have some behavior, not necessarily mental health, but behavior where you might need more support. So when we talk about trauma, it's the same thing. It's kids who have had these adverse childhood experiences that they need support through. Some of them are short-term, some of them are more long-term. Can be anything from, a death in the family to addiction in the family, addiction in the student, divorce. So trauma is really, kids have gone through something negatively that's affecting them emotionally. And there's
People-
not a.
And people at the school are informed of the trauma.
They're formed of
in that
practices and formed of
child's
how to
life.
deal with kids who come in who may experience trauma. And quite honestly, the last few years trauma has really been a buzzword in education the last few years. And my stance is, okay, great, we know we have kids who have trauma. So what are we gonna do about it? And it's really just a teaching style and a sensitivity of being able to work with kids that I think, whether a kid had trauma or not, quite honestly, I would say it should be how we're teaching kids.
So can I rewind that a little bit? When you ask about what does that mean, there is certified trainers in trauma-informed care. And what they do is they come in to work with teachers to kind of self-reflect a little bit on what is trauma. Some teachers even look at their self of what they've experienced, death, bad car accident, those type of things. And then they begin to teach teachers about how to recognize trauma that's in students' lives, to look at triggers that the teachers may do that would set the student off. And then they do additional training that helps them have appropriate responses to students that are acting out from trauma and how to work with. So they do a lot of training. We had a grant in my prior district. Dr. McNitt had a large elementary school that was in the grant. And they worked with them almost every month, training. So the teachers committed to a 2-day, and then it's continuing over the year that they come in on early release time and work with staff to understand trauma and how to be informed.
And one of the things that we did is, you may also remember that we received a grant to help with our homeless students, to help with our homeless education programs. So we've received this 3-year grant. So when I wrote the grant, I wrote in there that one of the pieces that we were going to do was to provide training on trauma-informed school, trauma-sensitive schools. So it's a way for us to be able to use some grant money to do just like what Dr. Morello said, to bring in some training and to really work with our ultimate goal is to have at least one person in each building who's been trained on the rules and laws of homeless students, but ultimately that's a trauma that they're probably experiencing, that a kid being removed from their home or placed in a shelter is very traumatic, so. And I'm sorry, I could talk about this all day, I'm passionate about this, so.
I'd suggest, if you're really interested in this ACEs thing, Adverse Childhood Experience, go home and Google it.
Yeah.
They've identified 10 of them, and we can each take the test and see how many we've experienced. And it'll surprise you.
And the thing that's with that or with any of those surveys is we know kids can be successful, even if they've had a ton of adverse childhood experiences. Kids are resilient, they have grit, they can be successful. Some are gonna need more support than others. And that's where we have to figure out as a school is how do we support that kid, whether it's mental health or just providing extra time or academic. We do it all the time with academics, so now we're looking more at the social, emotional, and mental health side of things.
For a lot of these kids, it's just coming to the classroom to see that stable adult every single day,
Absolutely.
and they don't want to go home in the summer.
It's all about relationships.
On the trauma-informed school, so I'm thinking in the past, I remember kids who had gone through certain things, and how is the school informed of that? How staff, are they truly informed? Like, I remember when they were doing a particular, like, kind of groups, they got a bunch of girls together to do some different groups at TJ, not knowing that some of those girls had actually been affected by that, and then they're asking them to speak about, oh, tell us about what you think about this, and it was just horrible for these girls. And I feel like we were not trauma-informed in that case, so how do we pass information around to be aware of what's happening to our kids so we can help them and not divulge personal conflict?
Yeah. Great question. FERPA, HIPAA, all those things, it's really hard. But you'd be surprised that if you have teachers and administrators and counselors and staff members who really know kids, you'll see a change. And you think, well, what's going on with this kid? And parents, when you can call, and again, it goes back to that relationship that you have with parents. If you can call a parent and you have a relationship with them and they know that there's a trust there, and you say, hey, I'm really worried about this student, what's going on? Most of the information we get is going to be directly from the parent or guardian, just because I think we've done a really good job of building relationships with people. It's something we still need to focus on, but.
Yeah, so let me kind of circle back to what Mr. Arthur just asked. Remember, this part is about providing the opportunities for staff to learn, and we will have to put some protocols in place to ensure staff members don't cross boundaries they shouldn't be crossing. But it's also for us to look at and see kind of the couple of pilots that we have, how well they're doing, and how do we feel like, from the surveys, that you are making progress. And even in a trauma-informed care, students should never be put in groups, and there's still the rubric and the support systems we have in the schools where when a teacher identifies a kid with trauma and needing some additional support, that they're referred back to that social worker, behavior consultant, and so on, counselor in that school. They are not to assume that role and take that on. They're still the educator.
Will we be, I guess, have we determined best ways to engage families in this discussion? Or is that part of this? It's, like, if I'm making them aware of what we are trying to do.
Yeah, I think that it brings up a whole nother area that's outside, I think, somewhat of this goal.
So let me help you here, Mr. Hamilton, because I think in the beginning part with where we're at, we won't do a blanket kind of like communication to parents saying, we're going to do this. I think if Mr. Hamilton can first get the students and the families that are referred, if we can get them to show up to that sessions that we've referred them to, we're gonna start knocking it out of the park. And that's where we build that relationship and that trust with the families that need it. Because the one thing I don't wanna do is put any spotlight on a family that may need additional support. I wanna keep that as private, especially for that student at school. I don't want her peers to know or his peers to know he's going to counseling with his family. So we will, right now, the best thing we can do is grow internally and become aware of what we're, and using the systems and the processes you have in place, and building that relationship and getting those families to show up for help.
Do we know, when the referral portion, do we know why families didn't engage? Why?
Again, the reasons why that the families don't engage is kind of like what we said is the appropriate referral. Is the referral appropriate? Do families really, have we really walked them through the process? Have we talked to them about it so they really know what they're signing up for? I think some of it is the availability to get there. I think some of it is the negative stereotypes that go with it. So it kind of runs the gamut that we really need to work on our end of reducing those barriers so they go.
Was it 48% of families that you said engaged? Do we have any idea of how that compares with other districts of this size, or?
You know what, that's a great question. I don't, but I wonder, it's interesting because just the UEN, we've been talking a lot about this just this last week, so I wonder if the other districts, they all do it differently, but that's a great number to see how many would, so I'll look into that.
And is there a group that does a good job of evaluating the effectiveness of the different programs and supports that they put in to for their students and families, or?
We kind of talked about it, like how would we measure? Could we do like a controlled versus non-controlled of the teachers that went through the training for mindfulness, and then what their classroom climate looked like and referrals look from the previous year in comparison to how they look this year, in comparison to teachers that did not go through the training. We also thought we would survey teachers and see how they felt about the trauma-informed care and how the professional development went throughout the year. And then finally, we felt like getting some feedback from our parents. Because one thing we never ask is, how well did the sessions go? How well do you feel like the support we gave you and your family, did it make a difference? And get feedback on something we could do better. And so those are some of the areas that we really need to do as we build those relationships with families in the community, that they can trust us. Because I know a lot of times when you show up to an appointment or something, or you commit, you are thinking, could this be a referral to, DFS? Or are you guys looking inside my home and thinking I'm not a good parent? So that's that kind of wall or barrier that Tim's talking about, is how do we bring that down and let them know we're really here to support and help you. We are not here to divide your family up or to cause you any harm.
Exactly.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Hamilton.
Could,
Can you hit
could
the-
I just
Yes.
ask, could somebody give me a definition of mindfulness?
I'm
It's
gonna-
a new
you know what,
term
I'm
to
gonna
me.
let- I'm gonna let the instructor
yeah, come
come
on,
up and
Mr.
give you the,
Or crash course.
Am I the only one that doesn't get that?
You've probably seen a lot of media coverage and a lot of, Time Magazine covers, the mindfulness issue of Time Magazine. Mindfulness is really the practice of paying attention to what's happening in the present moment without judgment. Not thinking about the past and not worrying about the future. Being in tune with your own biological systems and your own emotional responses to situations, and being able to become aware of triggers before you're triggered, creating space to get off of autopilot, to be, without using the word in the definition, to be more cognitive in your response to the stimulus in your environment.
Awareness.
Awareness. The emotional intelligence competencies are self-awareness, self-management, empathy, motivation, and social skills. So those are.
That's a big job.
It's a great class. You are welcome to attend.
I can take it with you?
You are welcome to attend.
Okay.
Great. Any other
Very good.
questions for Mr. Fringer? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. If that's
Thank you.
end of the discussion,
I have a question, I guess, for you, so
yes.
then, these goals are before us later. How are we gonna receive communication on these? I feel like these are not just goals that should be shared sometimes or progress shared in evaluation meetings. How could this be shared at the board table more along these 4 goals? Have you thought?
No, that's a great question, and this is, again, me bringing my prior knowledge that I have. In my prior district, the superintendent and the cabinet worked together for goals. We worked together on how to measure those goals, and then during board meetings, we presented updates on the goals. So this would be open to the public. The public knew what in the prior district, we called them SMART goals, but they knew what our focus was for this year. And at the end of the NWEA assessments, Dr. Vorthman will be presenting. As we have the data come in for our Future Ready, Dr. Vorthman will be before you presenting, and we'll have a conversation around that. As we move through the RFP, as we begin to look at firms that have applied to be a part of that process of creating a master facility plan, Mr. Wilson will be before you, and we'll have a conversation. And as we go through the year, working on mental health, Mr. Hamilton will be with us as we begin to work through that. Now, that doesn't let off the hook Mr. Schultz or Ms. Smith or Ms. Ostrowski or Dr. McNitt. We're all in this together because we will have these 4 goals before us in our cabinet meetings every week. So we will be talking and being a team around what does it look like to really ensure that our principals understand it, our teachers, and that the people doing the work are supported. So we will bring those to you.
I'm just thinking it's that discussion that's brought up, and it's about supporting this goal. This is what we're doing,
Yep.
this is what we've done this week, this month. Supporting this goal, here's what we're doing. Where that conversation's out there in front of the public all the time.
Yes.
So that we can really educate the community on what we're trying to do to improve not only the education of our students, but also just improve the community in general.
Yes.
So,
Yes,
Okay.
great question, thank you. And we close our informational presentation by inviting Mr. Schultz and Ms. Smith to the podium to share just a feel-good moment about opening of schools. And they are pretty excited about their presentation that they put together. And I am pretty proud of our principals and our teachers this year. I've made it to 8 buildings. I'm still on the continuing of visiting schools. Our preschoolers came in this morning. Everybody was happy. And so we I really felt like, though, that our school district, well, last year being new, I was a little more stressed. And if you remember, I had some independent thinkers that decided to go home on me in the middle of the day last year. I had some creative entrepreneurs that decided to test drive a little bit of someone else's vehicle. I had I had a little different activities at the beginning of last year, but it was of no fault to our staff. But I can tell you this year, our staff went above and beyond to make it a great opening at every building. So I'm super proud of the work that they did. So at this time, I will let you do your presentation.
Thank you. This is the fun presentation of the night, by the way. For us, and for many years, the first day of school is the most exciting day. It's kind of like Christmas. It is so much fun. As Dr. Murillo mentioned, it doesn't happen without a lot of hard work, with everybody working together to really work fast and furiously to make sure the first day is just the best possible thing for our students. And this year, as she said, went on without any big hitches. It was very smooth. But a picture is worth 1,000 words. And so we are not going to 1,000-word you. We are going to show you a few things.
Yeah, and so we've got a little video to show you, and in that video, you're going to see a lot of students, our students on the first day of school, including preschoolers from today.
Yay.
And you'll see a first-year teacher, elementary school teacher, before the kids come in, her excitement. And we also have a little video of a first-year principal in our school district, and she tells you what she's most excited about for the school year. So let's hashtag see for yourself.
Spoiler.
Sure.
I just want you to know that there are some seniors in here with their last day of school, and one of those was with me on his first day of school when I was a principal at Edison, and I ran into him at TJ, so just a little spoiler alert. My favorite picture.
questions? Any discussion? Okay. Well, with none said, thank you so much for that video. Kind of gave you a glimpse into our first day of school. At this time, that concludes our informational reports.
Okay, thank you, and thank you to everyone who presented. Some truly wonderful things happening in the district. Now I move on to the resolution portion, so we have our final list of graduates. Is there a motion?
Move that we approve the final list of graduates for the class of 2018 from the Council Bluffs Community School District.
Thank you, sir. Or is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any discussion on this? Probably not. And, Mr. Wilson, please call the roll.
Mr. Kazire,
Yes.
Mr. Grove,
Yes.
Dr. Ogres,
Yes.
Mr. Minshaw,
Yes.
Mr. McGlade,
Yes.
Mr. LaFurla,
Yes.
and Mr. Arthur.
Yes. And the final list of graduates is approved. Now we have approval of the 2018-2019 superintendent goals that were just presented. Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve the superintendent's goals as presented.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Kyle. Any discussion on these goals?
Not much discussion, just a comment. You know, we spent over an hour on that,
Yeah.
and I hope our editorial person over there makes a point of saying we do value student achievement. All
my
four of
gosh.
those goals were centered on that, and we had some great discussion, and I just commend my fellow and board members that we took the time to do that. And it sounds like we're gonna be doing that all year, and that's great. And I think our public should know that we're serious about that.
Agree. Any other comments or discussion? Mr. Wilson?
Mr. LaFurla,
Yes.
Mr. McGlade,
Yes.
Dr. Ogres,
Yes.
Mr. Minshaw,
Yes.
Mr. Kazire,
Yes.
Mr. Grove,
Yes.
and Mr. Arthur.
Yes, and the superintendent goals are approved. Now we have appointment of investigators and complaint officers. Is there a motion?
I'm not exactly sure how to do this, but I will try and move to appoint Tim Hamilton and Emily Warren as level 1 investigator and alternate investigator, and as complaint officers, as presented.
That was very good. Is that okay? Is there a second?
Second.
You done good.
Any discussion on this?
I guess just the question, would, alternate investigator, would that just be if he cannot take on that load, so there's just a second person on it?
Yes,
Okay.
it really should be Miss Emily Warren is first chair and Mr. Tim Hamilton is second chair. The state asked always that this is a state requirement to have this approval for the investigators. They always ask for 2 in case one is not here. One thing that I learned that the district has done for years, which is a great thing to do, is they've always had a male and female in case it's sensitive. And so then we can always alter and use. But Mr. Hamilton has always really supported, as you remember, Ms. Toby Reese was our lead last year. And so Miss Emily will take that seat.
So it'll be,
She'll be the,
do we need an
you
amendment?
you didn't do the lead or not, so I don't,
Yeah.
okay, we're fine.
I think you did.
Did he?
Yes.
I used to their names.
Yes, she does have as an alternative down here, so you are correct. If the lead investigator that is an error by Miss Amy Stewart's on there, but the level 1 investigator should be Miss
So-
Emily Warren, and the alternate
I'll just
investigator
amend
should
my
be,
motion then.
yes.
Friendly.
Yep, friendly amendment.
I apologize for that error.
No problem with that. Don't even vote on it.
So amend my motion to appoint Emily Warren as lead investigator and Tim Hamilton as alternate investigator.
No?
Who seconded that?
It's-
No.
If we're just
help
friendly,
me.
It's the
it's
same
just a
motion.
friendly.
The
so,
same
I mean,
motion,
the-
correct.
the
Dr.
seconder
Borkman's gonna come
can
up here
just-
and help me with
Just a
this.
quick point of clarification. So you're approving 2 investigation officers.
Right.
One is for complaints by staff members
Yeah, there's
regarding
student-
other staff members, Emily's the primary, Tim's the backup.
Okay.
If it is abuse of students by an adult, school employee,
First.
Tim
Tim.
is the first, Emily
see.
is the alternate. That's how we've
So we
done it
don't
in the
need a-
past
Okay.
with
Right.
regard to HR and student family
It doesn't need to
services.
be an amendment.
Okay.
So
So maybe
so we'll
we,
just run on the first
Yeah.
motion.
okay.
Okay. Any more discussion on that? Mr. Wilson?
Mr. LaFurla,
Yes.
Dr. Algress,
Yes.
Mr. Minshaw,
Yes.
Mr. McGlade,
Yes.
Mr. Kazire,
Yes.
Mr. Grove,
Yes.
and Mr. Arthur.
Yes, and Tim Hamilton and Emily Warren are, in some manner or
Our-
fashion, investigators and
Our
complaint officers.
investigators, yes.
And thank
We
you for that.
appreciate that. Mr. Hamilton is happy.
Now I move to approval of the superintendent's employment contract with Council Bluffs Community Schools. Is there a motion?
I move that the board approve our superintendent's contract with the Council Bluffs Community School District.
Is there a second?
Second.
And I can explain why. I think we had, kind of were just so busy. It really wasn't a focus, and I think that's much to Vicky's credit, that we were trying to get through all of our other contracts and get everything done before we move forward. And there was interviews and all kinds of things that we were doing at the same time. It just somehow slipped, but obviously it was not a case of any lack of support on her behalf, so just want to make sure we did
Have you
this.
been working for
Yeah.
free since July 1st, or?
Yeah, no, but
No,
it was
we
still in
always had a
effect.
3-year, I mean,
Yeah.
it's a 3-year contract
Correct.
that we had. So I mean, it's basically what we'd talked about in the, previously. It's more of a vote of confidence that
Correct.
we're just renewing a new 3-year contract. So technically, we were not, Dr. Murillo was still contractually working with the original agreement. It's just a matter of extending a new 3-year contract.
Yeah, we just wrangled it for another year now, so, on top of that. Any further discussion? No? Mr. Wilson?
Mr. Kazire,
Yes.
Dr. Algress.
Yes.
Mr. Minshaw,
Yes.
Mr. McGlade,
Yes.
Mr. LaFurla,
Yes.
Mr. Grove,
Definitely.
and Mr. Arthur.
Yes. And the contract for 3 more years is approved. Now we have approval of our professional growth systems as presented in the packet for teachers, counselors, and teacher leaders. Is there a motion?
Move to approve professional growth systems for teachers, teacher leaders, and counselors as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second?
Any discussion on these?
Yeah. I actually had a question just on like the wording. I'd emailed you, but I don't think we could really clarify it. So, I think it's in any of the things. I just clicked on the professional growth book for teachers, if you guys want to look. But it's on page 6 of the PDF under general procedures on number 1. It's just the building principal has the authority and responsibility to organize all appraisal activities. It is preferred that this be done in collaboration with a staff member.
Does that meet our current?
And I've invited
Yeah.
Mr. Milborn to join me.
Okay.
He worked on that this summer
Okay.
for us, and I'm pretty proud of the work he did.
Yes.
So,
And I
Mr.
think
Milborn, do you know what he's talking about?
So I think it's just my question is on the language of preferred that it's done in collaboration with a staff member. Is that just organizing the meeting should be done but doesn't need to be done? Or, okay.
That is correct.
So,
Yeah.
Very good.
can you paraphrase what he's
Sure.
saying?
Yeah, so we always want to organize that and set that up in a collaborative manner. In a very rare instance, there might be someone who maybe drags their feet on that process a little bit, and so then you have to kind of set that up.
Help collaborate.
But that is very, very, very outside the norm.
Okay,
of the
yeah, no.
process.
That was just it was just read weird-ish, so I just wanted to touch on it quick.
Okay, thank you. Any other question or discussion? Thank you, sir. Mr. Wilson?
Dr. Algress.
Yes.
Mr. Minshaw,
Yes.
Mr. McGlade,
Yes.
Mr. Kazire,
Yes.
Mr. LaFurla,
Yes.
Mr. Grove,
Yes.
Mr. Arthur.
Yes, and the growth systems are approved. Now we have our consent agenda, which includes a contract agreement for interim executive director, Dr.
Winnie McNitt.
McNitt, Dr. McNitt. And special education, ICT interpreter service contracts, special education contracts, personnel action, purchasing card transactions, and district disbursements. Is there a motion?
Move to approve our consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? So we have Dr. McNitt through January, was it 1? 31?
Yes, if you would like, I'll explain a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, we're in the process of looking for an HR director. We do have some internal interest, but we want to make sure we get a good year off. There is some things that, though, that needs to be done in HR that I need some support. I did reach out to Dr. McNitt and ask her if she would commit to giving us 3 days a week from August, the end of August through December. And I kind of added January just in case we weren't getting the right person in place in January. Really, what we need to do is really have like a retreat with HR to look at our processes and our procedures. I need to ensure that I have scales, salary scales for every group that works for us that is in line with districts like ours. But the first piece that I really need to get in place is processes and procedures. There are some processes and procedures. There's nothing in writing that I can truly find in all areas. So I really need her to assess and help me move that forward. Dr. McNitt, of course, did lead a building for us. She did work downtown at some point, but she also led elementary schools for us. Did a fabulous job. She retired from our district. And she worked on the union negotiation team for us for many years. She is very ethical, very trustworthy, and she will be very focused for us to help me get that HR into that next level that I'm looking for. And also to hopefully set the stage for the next person to come in, just to begin to do a lot of recruiting and the hiring and all of that process in place. When Mr. Milborn was with us this summer, he also left a to-do list for Dr. McNitt. And he clearly was pointing out gaps that we have. So that is the reason that I reached out, because I don't think I should rush to hire and try to have somebody fit into our system. I would really love to take the time to get HR where it feels like it's not fragmented. I mean, I don't have a large HR department, but I can tell you that when you have turnover of 2 or 3, stability starts to, crack. And I need to find some time to make them feel like they're a unit again and they're supported. I do meet with them every week, and I ask the same 3 questions. What are you working on? What are you concerned about? And how can I help you? And Dr. McNitt has been in the last 2, and I can see her spending one-on-one time building relationships. And that's, today we talked about a half-day retreat that we're going to do to really just talk about what do they think is working, what's not working. What do they have procedures for? What do they not have procedures? And where are those hidden rules that people don't know about? Because right now, if you ask probably 10 people in our district, who do you call for something in HR? They will say, I don't know, I just call HR. Well, who is that? So we need to clearly line out for our employees. If you're looking for FMLA, workers' comp, you're calling Emily. If you're looking for a substitute teacher, then you're calling Amanda. Our teachers and our staff member need to know who they're calling and what purpose each one has in HR. So Dr. McNitt is going to work on that. I'm sure that I'll be bugging her more than 3 days a week, but I'm only paying her for 3. But she is going to take a laptop home for me, so I appreciate that.
Any question? Board? Okay.
Whoops. Dr. Ogres?
Yes.
Mr. LaFurla?
Yes.
Mr. Minshaw?
Yes.
Mr. McGlade?
Yes.
Mr. Kazire?
Yes.
Mr. Grove?
Yes.
Mr. Arthur?
Yes, the consent agenda is approved, and we are adjourned.
Great. Sorry it took so long. It got a little wordy. Yeah, good, good.